Anyone ready for the message today? Are you ready for ridiculous? Are you set for ridiculous? And sometimes, like, when it starts out, it's not like what you think is going to happen. And when God said, get ready for ridiculous and all this, it was not like what I thought was going to happen. But how many of y'all know sometimes God doesn't meet our expectations so he can exceed our expectations? And so today I want to talk with you about destiny's door. Just look at the person next to you and say, there's a door. There's a door to your destiny, destiny's door. In week 1, we talked about bread of life, where Jesus said, I am the bread of life. We talk about cars for life. Everyone was super happy. People went and got donuts and pancakes. And then week 2 was light of the world. We talked about being lovers of the light. And here in week 3, the message, the statement that Jesus gives came out of a confrontation Jesus was having. I know we know nothing about confrontations today, but Jesus was having a confrontation with the religious leaders that appeared in chapter 9 because they claimed to know the law of God, but clearly they didn't know the God of the law. It's like, you don't know. You look at people like they think they know you. Like they think they know you because of the color of your skin. They think they know you because of how you vote. They think they know you, and you don't know me. And sometimes you want to look at other people and say, and you don't even know. Experts, all these people talking all like, you're like, you don't, like the experts of the law didn't know. And so here we have the experts of the law who didn't know that the Messiah was right in front of them. He was in their face. Anyone old enough to remember when that's what, like, we would tell everyone, in your face? Right? Like every once in a while, like I shoot and like in basketball and make it in your face. Like that was the thing. It was in your face. And sometimes God is right there in our face and we don't even realize it. And so chapter 9 ends with Jesus finding the man who had received his sight. Do you remember they were going along and the disciples were like, who sinned, him or his parents? Jesus like, neither. Jesus ended up giving sight to this man. And it ends with Jesus finding him because he'd been thrown out of the synagogue. Can you imagine if we threw you out of church? Like now for you it might be like you're offended, but at that time the synagogue church was where community happened. That's where all your friends, as it should be. This should be your family. This shouldn't be just something you clock in for an hour on Sundays. This should be your crew. That when something great happens in your life, these are the people you call. When something tragic happens, these are the people who call and surround you with love. Like it is about community. So he was kicked out. He got sight, but he lost his friends. Can we just acknowledge that there is a cost to receiving from Jesus? I think sometimes we don't realize that there's some people here that just by you coming here, by you making up in your mind you're going to follow Jesus, you've had family turn their backs on you. But just because you've said, hey, and you've tried to speak truth into their lives, you've had friends step out of your life. Some right now are facing consequences at their work for being a Bible-believing Christian. There is an opportunity with Jesus, but can we just acknowledge there is a cost? But I want you to know that what you gain from Jesus is far greater than whatever you're going to lose from people. So we step here into John chapter 10, verse 1. And Jesus says, very truly, I tell you, Pharisees, very truly, I tell you, religious leaders, anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and a robber. And many of us are like, what is going on here? But at that time, this was like a familiar illustration. Jesus is talking about something that everyone at that time could relate to. So for us today, we're like, we don't really get what he's saying here. But at that time, they're like, oh, they knew what he was talking about. Because a sheep pen usually would be like rocks that they would put up a wall. And they would build this pen made out of rocks. And usually there would be this gate or this door, this opening that they would enter and that they would exit through. Anyone watch the TV show Alone? Lindsay and I watched it for a bit. Sometimes it's hard to find like TV that's not trying to cram an agenda down your culture, and you're like, I just want to be like mindlessly entertained here without and so on the show they would be dropped off in some deserted place, and they got to pick 10 items, and they would have to build their own shelters. And so people at this time, they would know like what he's talking about, because this shelter would be so the sheep could go in at night. Because at night, it's dangerous to be out on your own. At night, there's predators. Can we just acknowledge, like, really nothing really good happens late at night? Like, you can get into a lot of trouble at night being out on your own. And yet, I've discovered, especially during this season, so many people are like, I don't need others. I don't need a sheep pen. I don't need a shepherd. And so we don't realize there is a place of safety. So we're out on our own, and we're always praying, God, save me from the places I've got myself, from the situations I've got myself into, versus realizing there is a place of safety. Stop staying out of the sheep pen. Now, I know I'm probably talking to the wrong people here, but so many people have got out of the sheep pen, have got out of church. And so there's all this talk right now about safe spaces and all these places like where there's not going to be a thought that offends you, where there's not going to be a statement that offends you. But I'm talking about in this world, there is real danger. In this world, there is real attacks. In this world, there is real predators. And that's why we need a community that we can gather together. And when it gets dark out and when there's attacks, we can be safe. Put yourself in God's safety versus always praying, God, save me. We're talking about destiny's door. Verse 2 says, the one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. You see, because thieves and robbers couldn't, robbers or rappers couldn't enter through the gate. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, opens this door. The sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. Now the gatekeeper, get this, would usually lay across the opening. There'd be this gate, this door, but the gatekeeper would lay across it at night. Ooh, anyone, you have little kids or you had little kids, and at night they say, can you just lay with me for a few minutes? They'd be scared at night, it's dark. No, okay, we're 5 minutes. Can you come check on me? Anyone knows kids? But can we just acknowledge, even as adults, like we want to be protected. Like we have attacks, we have stuff hitting our lives. And so it was not unusual for several flocks to be sheltered in the same pen. I know this sounds wild to us today because churches, not just culture's divided, but churches now are so divided and this and that. But there would be multiple flocks often in the same pen. So in the morning, get this, the shepherds would come, they would call their sheep, and they would assemble their flock. You would have the shepherd show up, you know, and the sheep would be like, say my name, like, and so the shepherd would be like, hey, Joe, here, you know, hey, Sally, here, you know, so would call the sheep by name, not call the sheep by a number, not call the sheep by their income, not call the sheep by their political party. You're like, someone's like, God that knows your name. The question isn't, does God know me? The question is, do you know God? We're talking about at destiny's door. When he has brought out all, someone say all his own. He goes on ahead. Someone say ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. Anyone like just worried about being left behind? I'm not talking about like the rapture. You wake up and you're like, oh no, God. I'm talking about just like in life. Like you're always like, like, oh no, like, like you always like hear about those like parents who lose their kids at Disneyland or at somewhere, and you're always like, how could anyone do that? And then if you have multiple kids, you're like, it happens, right? Like, but anyone remember the show Home Alone? Like the movie Home Alone? Like, you're always like, I don't want to be left. But God's not going to leave you behind. Now, sometimes we head the right way. Because it says here that the shepherd goes ahead of them. So sometimes, though, we're going the right way. This is for someone here. But you get ahead of God. It's not that you're going the wrong way. You're going the right way, but you're ahead of God. But I know the way. Well, it's not just the way, but God also knows the dangers. And God knows the timing. Some of us get destination obsessed. I'll be happy when I get married. So you rush to get married, and it was the right thing, but it was with the wrong person. And then you end up, or maybe it was the right person, but just not at the right time. Or you're so rushing to get that job that you get that job, but you don't last because you weren't ready. God was getting you ready for it. Or you get the house, but you weren't ready for the payment. So it's not just about the right way. It's about making sure that you're following God, that you're staying behind God. So there's some people that are going the right way. They're just ahead of God. There's other people who are always changing directions. Like this is like hilarious. Like, do you know people who are always changing their mind? I'm going to do this. I'll do that. I'll do that. No. Like just pastoring people. Like sometimes I gotta like just tell you like I'm getting motion sickness hearing your story. I'm getting motion sick. Like, I got to go home today and take Dramamine when it's always like this, then that, then this. Like, I want you to know I've diagnosed what's going on in your life. You have multiple direction disorder, that you're trying to go everywhere, every direction at the same. Okay, maybe not you. Maybe that's the person next to you. And then there's some people who are just going the wrong direction. Maybe they've determined, I'm just going to do what culture does. Maybe there's other people who are like, it's my way or it's the highway. Maybe there's other people like, I don't want to be told what, I don't want to follow the shepherd. You know, remember back in the day before maps and before Waze, and like you had to stop and ask for directions? And there's those people, I'm never going to ask for directions. I would rather be lost. I would rather than asking for. And so sometimes we end up like we're like, this seemed like it was the right thing to do, but now I'm lost. This seemed like the right way to go, but now I'm running out of resources. This seemed like the right way to go, but now I'm hurting. This seemed like the right marriage, but now we're separated. This seemed like the right place to move. Your future is determined by who you follow. It says each sheep recognized their shepherd's voice. Who do you listen to? There are so many voices today. We have influencers. We have athletes. We have actors. We have news anchors. We have podcasters. Everyone has a voice, and everyone's voice matters, but you don't have to listen to everyone's voice. Recognize their shepherd's voice. As a kid, I could recognize when my dad got mad. Not just because his chin would like, but his voice, Daniel James, like the only time he ever used my middle name, which is his first name, was when I was in trouble, which was a lot. So I got to hear my name, and I got to know what that voice was because I heard it a lot. I can recognize Lindsay's voice. I can recognize the tone. I recognize the word choices, even if it sounded like Lindsay. Sometimes she uses like words like she's like uses like literally asinine. I was like, do you even know what asinine means? And she did. I was like, okay, cool, this is great. I walked out today. She looks at me, and this is if you want to know that people are not going to believe that you do this. But if she really likes something like that I'm wearing, the way she compliments is she gets what I call drunk trucker voice. Now, if you're a trucker, I'm not saying you're a drunk, and if you're a drunk, I'm not saying you're a trucker, and nobody should be drinking and driving. It just sounds like a trucker who's drunk. So I walk out, and she looks at me, and she's like, yeah. I'm like, I think my mom warned me about people like you. I don't even know, like, what do you even do with that? But I got to know Lindsay because we spent time together. Even though she was living in Chicago, I would fly there. And so we would meet up whenever the coffee shops opened. We'd head to that coffee shop, meet her at the coffee shop. We'd be at the coffee shop. Then we'd go grab lunch. Then we'd go get more coffee. Then we'd go to eat. And then we'd end up closing down the restaurant. Okay, I'll see you at this coffee shop tomorrow when it opens, because repetition reinforces recognition. I say this because I love you and I care about you, but how much time do you spend in God's Word? Is this the only time that you are spending in God's Word? How much time do you spend in worship? Well, I don't play instruments. I don't have all these amazing singers and musicians. Like, there you go. Like, we got worship music rocking at our house all the time. Well, I don't have a speaker. Play it through your phone. Put it in your headset. Like, how much time do you spend in community of healthy, not perfect, but in a healthy community of believers here who can say, like, I think you need to check yourself before you wreck yourself, or like, okay, that's not what God's Word says. How much time do you spend in prayer? I'm not saying that because you got to do all these things, like, because you have to, but like, you need to be able to recognize God's voice. Your future is too important to trust it to anyone other than God. And sometimes we feel like it's just with God. Like, can you hear me now? God, can you hear me now? Like I don't have this good connection with God, and it's because it's like the connection's only being worked on for like a little bit on Sunday mornings, maybe a couple times a month. It is worth it, because when you hear God's voice more clearly, you could see your future more clearly. We're talking about destiny's door. Anyone believe that today? It says, verse 5, but they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. It is important who we run to and who we run from. Come on, Joseph knew who to run from, Potiphar's wife. David messed up and ran to Bathsheba. And here's the thing is, when you get saved, when you make up in your mind, I'm going to follow Jesus, who you run to needs to shift, and who you run from needs to shift. What you run to needs to shift, and what you run from needs to shift. Does anyone remember, like, when I was raised, not everyone knows this, but when I was raised, like, and when I say not everyone knows this, is because there were panicked parents during the season I was a kid. And so my mom would like give me these long speeches about how people were going to drive up in cars and they were going to offer me candy. And whatever I did, don't take the candy and don't get in their car. So as a kid, I'd be like walking, just like ready. She's like, just run. And I'd be like walking, so afraid because these people were going to come and offer me candy. And even like, I didn't even like Halloween. I don't want to take candy. Afraid, like I don't want to get in anyone's car. Why? Because I would end up like all the kids on the milk carton. Some of you like don't know what this is, but when we were kids, here's what I'm saying. Is that there were things to be afraid of. There were things to be aware of. Because kids went missing and kids still go missing. And we need to protect our children. And we need to be aware. But we're so focused on what we need to run from. I think sometimes, are we focused on what we need to run to? So right now, like we're like, oh, don't do that. And that's why some people think like Christianity is a bunch of don't do this and you don't get to do that. And you don't but more so what we need to run from is who we need to run to. Because there is danger and we need to know danger. But we also need to know God. And we need to recognize his voice. Here's the thing. The thieves and the robbers couldn't get in through the door. So maybe if they climbed over and they tried to get the sheep out, they couldn't lead the sheep out because the sheep didn't recognize their voice. They can't lead them out. The only way they could get them out is by deceiving them. And we have so many people who are being deceived, not because they don't know the dangers, but because they don't know God's voice. I'm not like, listen, I'm saying that God's word is greater than our worry. There is destiny's door available to everyone today. Verse 6, Jesus used this figure of speech, but the Pharisees did not understand what he was telling them. A figure of speech, it's an expression used to convey meaning or heighten effect, often by comparing or identifying one thing with another. It's like, I'm falling in love. I'm racking my brain. They would understand this figure of speech. I remember being a kid and my granddad, he'd say things I didn't understand. Up a creek without a paddle. Be like, there's no creek here, and what paddle? What are we talking? Granddad, you want to go get some ice cream? God willing, and the creek don't rise. It's just down the street, Granddad. Like, you got $1, Thrifties, it's cheap. Like, we can go get ice cream. But here's the thing that we see about Jesus. Jesus was relatable. He didn't sound overly religious. I wonder today sometimes if we sound over-saved, if we sound over-spiritual, if we sound like we had a little too much of that Jesus juice. People come in here, they've never been into church, and they hear our language. Hey, how's it going? I'm blessed and highly favored of the Lord. And they're like, I don't even know what that means. So tell me about yourself. I'm a prayer warrior. They're like, are you going to hit me over the head with your Bible? I don't even know what that means. Have a good day. You're too blessed to be stressed. And they're like, no, I'm really stressed. Like, I don't have this. And all this is happening. And then not just our language, but our life. Because in our story, we like to edit out the struggles. As we tell our story, we like to edit out all the times that, like in the past, that we were far from perfect. And maybe it's not just about the success, but it's about being appropriate in sharing some of our struggles. Realizing like we can talk about sports and not just things that are spiritual. It's okay if we mourn the Dodgers for a moment here today. Like, it's okay if you want to talk about fashion and not just your faith. And yet they're here and they're like, they don't understand. Don't understand. The Pharisees did not understand. Isn't it amazing that the people who thought they knew the most understood the least? Do you see that happening today? Those that are supposed to know the most understand. It's getting quiet here. I wonder if they were unable or unwilling. I look at people today, I'm like, you seem to not understand. Are they unable to understand? Or are they just unwilling? Well, whatever the case, here's the thing is, as Christians, we need to communicate in a relatable, not religious manner to help people step through destiny's door. Verse 7, therefore Jesus said again, very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. Jesus is following an illustration with an application. Now, please understand, he's not condemning everyone who came before him. He's not condemning all the prophets in the Old Testament. He's not condemning John the Baptist. He's condemning the thieves and the robbers who are the current religious leaders that he's talking about. I wonder today if that would apply to some of our politicians. I wonder today if that would apply to some of our news anchors. I wonder today if that would apply to some of our influencers. I even wonder today if that would apply to some of us pastors. Like, why should you not listen? Like Jesus is saying that, why not listen to them? Because they're thieves and robbers. Why not follow them? Because they're not true shepherds. Because they don't have the approval of God. They may have the applause of people, but they don't have the approval of God because they didn't love their sheep. They didn't love the people. They didn't care about the people. They were all about exploiting and abusing them. And I think I'm looking at what's taking place in some leadership and what's going on, and you're like, it's not really about love, it's not really about care, it's about exploitation, and it's about abuse, and it's about making false promises. That's why we need to make sure as the church we don't buy into culture, because here at this church, it's not what we want from you, it's what we want for you. It's what we want to see God do in and through your life, and it happens by stepping through destiny's door. Verse 9, Jesus says, I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. He says this twice, I am the gate, I am the door. Many translations say, because the gate is the door, it's the way in which you enter through. There are many ways people get to Jesus, but Jesus is the only way to heaven. All religions don't end up at the same place. All beliefs don't end up at the same place. People will journey on their many paths as they find Jesus, but Jesus is the only way. He is the only gate. He is the only door to salvation. He is the only door to true peace. He is the only door to true protection. He is the only door to true freedom. Anyone like, you're panicked because you want to make sure all your doors are locked? It's amazing. Like, if you travel different parts of the country, people don't lock their doors. I'm one of those people who checks every door 3 times at night. Why? Because there's crazy people in the world. Some people don't even lock their cars. I'm like, what? I always want to make sure that, but I want you to know, Jesus is the door, and it's not locked. It is unlocked and wide open, and when you walk through this door, you receive salvation, you receive life, you receive peace, you receive restoration. Jesus not only gave his life for us, but he gives life to us. The shepherd doesn't just lead you out, he also leads you in. In and out, in and out. That's what a hamburger, I'm hungry singing that song. In and out, in and out. That's what our shepherd is all about. Because the blind man who received his sight, the false shepherds threw him out. Jesus led him in. They were critical. Jesus was caring. Jesus led him out of their criticism into his care and into his community. There's a big difference between Christian theology and critical theory. Because of Jesus, it's possible to leave dead beliefs and enter a living relationship with a loving shepherd who says, come and find pasture. Pasture is there's plenty. Pasture is a place of peace, of protection. You've heard it said the grass isn't greener on the other side. Well, I want you to know with Jesus, the grass is greener on the other side of the door. You can leave the criticism that culture offers, and you can enter into the care that Christ offers. Verse 10, we love to quote this, the thief, my last verse, comes to kill, only to steal, kill, and destroy. But Jesus says, I have come that you may have life and have it to the full. Behind these false shepherds, most likely was an even greater enemy. What we're facing today, they're not the enemy. Behind what's going on is an even greater enemy. Only coming to kill, steal, and destroy marriages. Only coming to kill, steal, and destroy parents' involvement in their kids. Only coming to kill, steal, and destroy families. Only coming to kill, steal, and destroy churches. Only coming to kill, steal, and destroy freedom of religion. Only coming to kill, steal, and destroy. And in a culture that lets it go on, where you can rob any store, and places are closing down because they're not doing, but Jesus says that, no, I've come to offer life to your marriage. I've come to offer life to your emotional distress. I've come to offer life to the turmoil that you're facing. I've come to offer life, and not just life to the max. Ooh, see, culture tries to minimize, but Christ says, I'm going to maximize your life. You see, be full. Some people say, I'm full. Like, you'd be like, you're full of it. To maximize your life is not about convenience. It is not about comfort. It is not about clothing or cars. It is about being full of Jesus and purpose and meaning. So many have come to a place where you feel like empty. Like, wait, you feel like, I've had my life robbed. I've had this robbed. I've had this because the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But Jesus says, but here I am. Enter in through this door. You may have come here empty. If you're driving and your tire's empty, you got to go put air in it. You're out of gas, you got to put some gas in it. You can't put gas in your tires and you can't put air in your gas tank. And I think some of us are trying to put the wrong thing, thinking, sometimes you got to find, okay, where's the nearest gas station? Where's the nearest? You're trying to find where's the nearest gas station. Here's the great thing about Jesus. You think you came here trying to find Jesus? Jesus found you. Woo. He says, I've got life, and I want to offer you a full life. And here's the thing about Jesus. Where everyone else is criticizing you, where everyone else is looking at you and judging you based upon certain aspects. It's like people don't even call you by your name, calling you by a political party, calling you by the color of your skin, calling you by your mistakes, calling you. And the shepherd shows up, and he knows your name. He knows who you are. And here's the thing, he showed up, and he called an individual to be one of his disciples. Simon, he called Simon the fisherman. But then he ended up sending out Peter, the fisher of men. He got called and showed up to Saul. But he ended up sending Paul. He calls us by name. But who you are today is not who God has called you to be, but he knows. Yes, he does. He knows. You may think nobody knows. God knows your name.